Good day everyone, I am Vanessa Aguinid together with my partner JOVILYN MARCEL GAJE, and we're here to talk about the 4 methods of teaching reading. But first, let's talk about reading. Reading is one of the most important skills you can teach to a child. A child's success not only at school but also in later life depends on the skills. Reading stimulates part of a child's brain to grow and be more active. Reading can widen a child's vocabulary and comprehension ability. Through reading, children develop their empathy, build self-confidence, and expand their imagination. Now, to teach a child how to read, we must know different methods of teaching reading and apply them. In our report, we will explain the common methods of use to teach reading. To teach your child or someone else, you can use one of these methods or a combination of 2 or more methods. Number 1, the phonics method. This is a well-known and one of the best methods of teaching reading. In this method, children are taught the alphabet first, and learning the alphabet involves learning not only the names of the letters but also the sounds they make. Children can blend 2 or 3 letters together to make words only when they have learned letter sounds. Among the methods of teaching reading, the phonics method is thought to be the most effective. And to apply this method properly, you can use flashcards or phonologically written books that are used regular and interesting words. Phonics method. Sa phonics method, magamit tao mga flashcards with letters, and diri na to sa phonics method, matugod sa child ang forma sa letter, ang tawag sa letter, and especially sa sound sa letter. So, start sa letter A. So, this is letter A, ang forma sa letter A, and then the sound which is A. Next, letter B, sound as P, P. Letter C, sound as K, K. Letter D, T, and so on. And then, dito sa phonics method, kinahinay na to sila blend sa letters and para mabasa nila. So, for example, bowl. So, I'll start with letter B, which is B, A, ball. So, ingana na to siya pagtulo sa phonics method. Isa-isahon ang by letters sa sound. Letter B, letter A, letter L, L, B, A, ball. Next, for example, sa dog. T, t, O, g, d, dog. Dog. Next, butt. P, O, t, 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 butt. Butt. Car. K, R, k, k, car. The whole word approach, often referred to as look and say method. The word approach focuses on a learner's ability to recognize whole words. Show your child a word, sound the word, and ask him to repeat the whole word. You can use flashcards to teach your child to read, and it is better to use flashcards with pictures because pictures will help your child understand the meaning of the words. Without the use of pictures, this method is not very effective, but it can be one of the best methods of teaching reading if applied properly. This method, also known as sight reading, it is based on a concept that when children are exposed to certain words for a long time, they can eventually sight read the words. Most specialists think that this method can be as effective as other methods of teaching reading, and it is especially useful when teaching how to teach a toddler to read because children this young may not be ready for phonics instruction. Like, pariya ka ganina now, sounds to sounds lang ta, or letter to sounds. You can also try to teach your child short word sentences with these methods. And students try to recognize whole words in a written forms, and context is important to make this method effective. This method does not involve cognitive attention for processing words. As a result, this method is a faster and it facilitates reading comprehension, and this method is more effective for learning to read high-frequency English vocabulary. So, sa whole word na sa method is kinahanglan siya word then ang drawing. So, pating ang drawing. So, nga napareha na siya. So, dapat sa whole word is kinahanglan siya na word and then drawing. Kaya mas ma-recognize sa child kung naa siya drawing. Sa bowl, may anak. Pero kinahanglan itong mga flashcards para sa kuan. Pero dapat by word din siya, by word. Dili lang siya by letters, but by word.
The third method of teaching reading is the language experience approach. This method uses learners' own words to help them read. Unlike other methods of teaching reading, this method is grounded in personalized learning. Why man ganun personalized learning? In this method, every child learns different words, and children often find this method very easy because they learn words they are already familiar with. Nganong they learn words that they are already familiar with man? Because this approach involves a shared experience such as a common school experiences, excursions, and everyday happenings. In other words, first-hand experiences are reflected through the text written through the language experience approach. This approach is more effective when it is combined with other methods of teaching reading such as the phonics method. So why it is personalized learning? Because again, as it says here na, the text written through the language experience approach are reflected from the experiences, from the first-hand experiences of our students. So we let them reflect on their experiences, either on their everyday happenings, on their vacation, or during their Christmas, and then let them tell their experiences, and we were the ones to transcribe those oral story from them into written text so that it will be our reading material that we will be using for them to practice reading. Okay, the language experience approaches works in a different way from other methods of teaching reading because this method integrates the 4 basic aspects of learning in a language through the development of a written text which is based on a learner's first-hand experiences. To use this method, notice unsang word ang ganahan kaayo sa bata, and then make a sentence or sentences with those words. When the child draws a picture, unsa tong buhaton, we should write down a description underneath the picture. Then, read the description aloud. It will help the child better understand what is written. Diba? Because if the reading material or if the written text is based on their experiences, mas dali nila masabtan ang ilang gibasa because it is the first-hand experience man to nila. Diba? And if katong description nga underneath ato ilang drawing, mas dali to nila masabtan because ibaw sila unsa to, unsay meaning adto, and then if basahon to nila ang description sa ubos, wala sila nagbasa nga empty lang, amra wala ang aigo ra gabasa. Pero gabasa sila nga nasabtan nila to ilang gibasa. Okay? So this approach, the language experience approach, supports a child's vocabulary growth and concept development. Using oral language and personal experiences, this method also offers children opportunities for meaningful reading and writing activities. And the fourth method of teaching reading is the context support method. What is this method? The context support method is one of the least discussed method of teaching reading, but it is not less effective than other methods. Why? Because to attract and hold the attention of the learner, it uses the associative connection between words and pictures. So from that line, do you have now the idea what is this context support method all about? From the connection between the words and the pictures. So to learn something, paying attention is of utmost importance, diba? But children who are disinterested cannot pay attention long enough. So most educators believe that this context support method works because it holds a learner's attention. Why man? Why does it holds the learner's attention? Unsa dining context support method? This context support method is a method na kung magamit ang material that we will use to teach our students how to read, dapat kato nga material kay na ay mga pictures or images that will catch their attention. Notice that all children books in stores have pages na full of what? Full of images. It may be about the animals, cartoon characters, Barbies, soldiers, cars, or robots. Diba? And those books, mootong pinakaganahan sa mga bata nga basahon. Kay amazed man kay sila sa mga pictures na ilahang makita every time they flip the pages. Right? So once children have passed their early reading stage, parents often have difficulty in finding good reading material for children. So children have their particular interest. Boys usually like robots and boats or cars, and girls likes dolls like Barbies, right? And if boys and girls are provided with reading materials that really interest them, they are unlikely to lose interest in reading. The key is to provide them with interesting reading materials so that they can read for pleasure. Just like as adults, diba? If we choose a book na atong basahon, others kay unahon sa nagbasa ang prologue, and if sa prologue pa lang dili nakaganahan sa plot sa story, sa flow sa story, I doubt imo nang paniton og paliton og dalon sa yung balay kay basahon maskin dili ka ganahan sa prologue, diba? Imong ibalik og butang sa shelf kay dili ka interested mo basa adto. So if we read, dapat na ay pleasure in reading, dapat na ay tay interest sa atong gibasa. And for the children, dapat ang material nga atong gamiton for them to practice reading or for us to teach them how to read, dapat katong materials na mo-catch sa ilahang interest. And kato kay mga books with images. Kabantay mo na if tunulan nimo ang bata og book nga mas daghan ang text tapos gamay ra kaayo ang picture tas nara sa kilid, iya ka nang basahon og tiwas din paklion to niyang tiwas, di ba dili? Most likely ilahara nang i-close og ipadaplen kay wala sila, dili sila ganahan sa book. Ang pinaka una jud tan-awon sa bata kay ang itsura or ang images na ilang makita sa libro. Katong mga pictures, dili ang text. Let's be real. 'Di ba? So when children discover pleasure in reading, they read more, and when they read more, they learn more. So if they can relate to the content they are reading, they read with enthusiasm. Ganahan sila mabasa. Ganahan ka sila nga, hala, paspasan ko ni, dalian jud kani, dapat kay hibaon na ko ni, kay para makita na nako, mapaklik na nako ang next page, o makita na nako unsa na pud tong image ka naa didto. Right? And there are books that specially have been written to support this method. These books have long as well as short sentences that can read to your child or to your students. We can combine short and long sentences, and to make the teaching process more effective, use the context support method with other methods of teaching reading. Like, we can also use here the language experience approach. Like, atong i-connect ang atong book kay na mga pictures about children playing in the playground. So, mag-ask the question sa ilaha, atong i-connect sa ilaha ang story sa book. Ingon tag, unsa po to na experience ng mga atong ming adto ka sa playground, to nagplay ka dito sa playground, di ba? So, i-integrate dere katong sa language experience approach para mas ma-feel nila bitaw nga connected sila sa ilaang gibasa. 'Di ba? Mas madungagan ng ilahang interest and enthusiasm.
There are additional tips for parents, and regardless of methods you are using, keep in mind that your end goal is to teach your child or students to read. All methods of teaching reading are effective, and you just need to figure out how to apply the methods. And here are tips that may help you apply the methods mentioned kaganina. Read to your child regularly. Read to your child on a regular basis. Read aloud and make sure child participate in reading with you. As you read, run your child's finger along with the text. Develop a routine and make reading fun. Make sure you read to your child at the same time every day. Regularity is of utmost importance.
Second, choose material your child finds interesting. Failure to choose your child's favorite reading material will lead to disappointment, even if you use all the methods of teaching reading. And if your child is a boy, he may be interested in robots, sports, Superman, or Spider-Man. And a girl child may be interested in dolls. Figure out what the child likes most and choose materials that relate to your child's preferences. Buy a book that has related vocabulary. It will boost the child's motivation, and children learn more when they can relate to what they read.
Talk about what you read and see. The more you talk to your child, the more he is likely to develop a strong vocabulary. Your child's book can spark conversation between you and your child. You can also talk about the picture in his book. Conversations can make the methods of teaching reading more effective. To keep a record of new words, keeping a journal is a good idea. Words that are connected to the story are easier to remember. Start conversation, ask interesting questions, and pay attention to the answers.
Fourth, do not always read the same books. Your child will gradually develop his or her reading ability. So you will also need to increase the challenge of books. You may start with books that have one word per page, then move on to books with longer sentences, and then books with paragraphs level text. But avoid books that contain too many unfamiliar words. Most likely, the child will find those books boring. So, choose books that your child finds challenging but not too challenging.
And lastly, the most important, do not compare your child with others. Let your child learn to read at his own pace. If you always compare a child with peers, he will feel overwhelmed and experience inferiority complex. Negative feelings can impair your child's learning ability. The methods of teaching reading will not be effective if your child feels ignored and worthless. Praise your little one whether he makes some progress or some mistakes. Be patient and help your child every day. Gradually, he will develop a strong reading skills. That is our report. Thank you for listening.